The coating durability test puts XS through a cycle of 10,000 strums. Through the lens of a microscope, it is clear that XS retains its composition better than other coated strings. Testing complete.
Joe, man. Hey, this is John Bollinger with Premier Guitar. I'm with Joe Robinson. Joe, that was fantastic. Thanks for being here, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
God, mind-blowing. Love your work. So glad you're able to do this. I've been following you forever, and I'm glad the stars aligned. We're at the City Winery in Nashville right now, and Joe actually just came in from Montana, where you've recently moved.
Yeah, moved out there this summer, and we love it. It's nice to be back in Nashville. I was living here for 12 years. I'm from Australia originally, but moved down to Nashville when I should say up to Nashville, from down under, and I moved here when I was 18, and so it's nice to be back here playing with some good friends. We're doing a little recording this week. So it's going to be fun.
Great. Well, why don't you tell me about this guitar? And I've seen you in this bag a lot.
Yeah. So I've been playing Maton guitars since I was a kid. In fact, my father had a Maton guitar that was hidden under the bed that I couldn't play when I was young. It was the good guitar.
Yeah, right.
And I'm very proud to have my own signature model Maton. This is called the JR Signature. It was released in 2020 at the NAMM show.
Wow.
And the tone woods are Tasmanian myrtle, back and sides, which is quite a unique wood. It's actually a member of the beech family. It's not a myrtle, but it's an Australian tone wood. Mahogany neck, rosewood fingerboard, rosewood bridge. And the Maton pickup, as you can hear, sounds really phenomenal.
Oh,
it's just
fantastic.
such a great stage guitar.
Yeah.
And I use it for recording as well.
Now, what is the top on it? Is it spruce?
Oh, sorry, spruce, yes.
Yeah. Wow, great. Yeah, that proprietary pickup is incredible.
Yeah, it's such a sensitive sound. You can really play with such a delicate touch and get a huge sound. Anyone's familiar with Tommy Emmanuel, if you've seen him live, you've heard the power of the Maton guitars, as well as many other great people that use it. And one of the key differences with this guitar is it has a custom fret wire that Joe Glazer turned me on to.
Really?
It's a little wider than a Maton fret and taller than a Gibson fret, so it's kind of this sweet spot. And anyone who wants to know more can go to Maton's website and click on this model, and they have all the specs. And yeah, it's really a great fret wire. I have it in all my acoustic guitars.
That's great. You know, I like the fact that you took a signature guitar and you didn't just go with what they already had. You put your own spin on it.
Yeah, I had to insist because I mean it's what I use in all my guitars.
Yeah.
And with the way I play, going between acoustic and electric, the larger frets, they feel more comfortable to me. And I use a bit of a peculiar string gauge as well. So I have a set of 12 to 54, but I don't use the 12. I put a 14 on the top.
Wow.
And everyone thinks that sounds really heavy, but you play the guitar and it actually feels really easy to play.
Are you in standard tuning the whole time?
Yeah, just standard tuning. I would like to play in other tunings, but the practicality of carrying so many guitars on the road, I don't like tuning during songs. Sure. Kind of really bugs me if I have to do that. So yeah, I just stay in standard tuning, and I got the idea from Pat Berkison, who's my buddy, and Pat's going to be playing tonight, but it just gives you a little more tone.
Yeah.
on the high E, and I'm just so used to it. I've been playing with that gauge for about 10 years now, so I'm just used to it with the way I play.
Right. And what strings? What brand?
Ernie Ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know? What?
So I go between the Paradigm.
Yeah.
I use just phosphor bronze, Paradigm, and the Earthwood.
Huh.
I really love the Earthwood, but I also really love the Paradigm.
Yeah, I just discovered those as well.
Yeah.
I love those.
The Paradigms will get me through 2 shows, maybe even 3 shows, and they just sound great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now, what picks are you using? Because I see you, I've seen you mostly on thumb picks.
Yeah.
But when you're on electric, anyway.
So when when I play solo, I'm usually playing fingerstyle. I have 3 different picks I use. My thumb pick that I use when I'm playing fingerstyle is a Dunlop medium, just a basic Dunlop medium, but I don't shave it down. I like the ones that are this kind of tortoiseshell color, although they're plastic. The white ones are a little bigger, and I find that if I get a bag, maybe 3 of them fit perfectly, and then another 2 or 3 feel a little bit like they don't fit perfect.
Yeah.
And then it depends on how much salt you've had.
Yeah, right.
The weather, on whether the pick fits just right. So it's a bit of a guessing game. I have 3 in my pocket right now. And sometimes I play with no thumb pick. I just use the pads of my fingers, so I don't use fingernails. And for flat picks, I have these 2 picks here. I use a Dunlop Jazz 3, which is kind of the tried and true.
Yeah.
That's my electric guitar pick of choice. And I have this Blue Chip TAD 60 that I really love for acoustic playing. And these picks just sound fantastic. So that's what's in my pocket. And I have 2 of the Blue Chips, and I haven't lost them in like 3 or 4 years. I'm quite proud of myself in that respect.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't hold on to one for 2 or 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. Now, what amp are you using? We'll get into your electric rig later, but let's talk about this.
Right now I'm using this AER Alpha, and the reason I'm using this amp on this gig is because I flew in from Montana, and I have a Pelican case that fits my 1967 Champ in it, and this AER. I normally use an Udo Rosner Da Capo 75, which Udo was the one who designed this AER, and he went out on his own, created his own amp, and I prefer it to this, but this one fits in my road case.
Oh yeah, totally.
So that's why I have it.
Yeah.
And they're both great amps.
And how do you send the signal out through the XLR out?
Yeah. So the way I do it, and this is a little peculiar, but I send 2 signals out. So I send one from the back of the amp, which is the dry signal, and then I take the line out, which includes the reverb.
Right.
And then I'll send that through a little DI box that's made by Shaw Audio, which is a great sounding DI, and I'll send that as the wet signal. So if I'm playing on stage and I want to turn the reverb up for effect, I can do that, and it'll come through the wet channel.
Oh.
Also, if I feel like I'm not getting enough volume, which happens a lot,
Sure.
There's nothing worse than getting on stage and being solo acoustic guitar, and you're just like, there just needs to be another 2 dB.
Yeah.
So I can turn up the master. I'm sorry, the preamp, and turn the master down, and that doesn't affect the dry signal.
Oh, that's great.
And anyway, it doesn't affect the volume of the amp, because if the amp gets too loud, it starts to get boomy up here. But
sure,
I can make the sound guy a little annoyed when I crank it.
Right. And the internal speaker is just for you to monitor.
Yeah.
Do you put any in your wedge, or just go
a smidge?
Yeah.
And only if I can't really feel the house.
Yeah.
So if I can feel the house a lot, I don't even like to use the monitor. Yeah. But here, the house, I usually use my loop pedal here, and I'll play a loop, and then I'll walk out there and listen to how it sounds.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll make a judgment on whether I'm going to ask the front of house engineer to turn it up a little, or whether it's good and I need to get a little in the monitor.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much what I do. I set the EQ pretty much flat. Sometimes I'll roll the bass off a little bit. And yeah, I've been using the Maton AER or the Maton Da Capo combo for over 15 years now, since I was in my early teen years. It's a great combo.
And in front of it, you're just using, looks like a TC tuner.
Yep.
and the Boss loop, and that's it.
Yep, and this is a fly rig, so I've weighed every pedal, I've weighed every patch cable to try and get it to be as light as possible.
Yeah.
And so I use the TC tuner because it's half the weight of a Boss tuner.
Yeah.
But the Boss ones are a little sturdy. I have to be a little careful if I stomp on these too hard, they'll rock.
Very
but I just
bright,
use
though. You can definitely see that, that readout.
But yeah, I just have the Boss RC1 looper, and I was the one that did the original product demo when they launched that back in 2016 or so, and it's just a perfect looper for me. It's really simple. I like pedals with one knob, as you're going to see later, but just has a level, and it's really quick. I've had other loop pedals in the past that have all broken, and the Boss ones have never broken, and I use this foot switch to turn it off.
Yeah.
So
great.
That's my acoustic kind of chain.
Okay, well let's get into your electric.
Great.
Okay, so now we're in Teleland.
Yep.
Tell me all about that.
So this is a great guitar. It's basically a '53 Telecaster. It's not an old one, and it wasn't even made by Fender. It's a great guitar, and I'll tell you, to me, I'm totally enamored with Ron Ellis's pickups. These are Ron Ellis's pickups. This is the Julian Large. I wish I could remember exactly the combination, but it's the JL neck, and then I believe it's the 52T bridge. I hope I'm not telling you the wrong models, but Ron Ellis's pickups, as soon as I put them in, the other Telecaster I used to use a lot, I was just so blown away. They really bring out so much of the instrument. So this is like a 50s style Tele with a nice medium C neck.
Same frets, looks like.
Yeah, roughly speaking, kind of a standard, slightly bulkier electric fret with a more modern radius than the old, the old vintage Teles. And I have kind of played Gretsch guitars a lot. I've played a Strat quite a bit over the years, and I've kind of come back to the Tele. I remember when I was out with Robben Ford, we did a project called the Guitar Army, which was back in 2016, and Robben hinted at me that he felt like I wasn't getting the tone on the Strat that was really had a voice. And I learned so much from hanging with Robben and listening to Robben. And he connected me with Alexander Dumble as well, who became a good friend, and I visited him, at his home a half dozen times. And so I feel like I really got a schooling on tone, hanging with Robben and sitting in Alexander's living room playing.
Right.
And I've come back to playing a Tele, which I'm really enjoying. When I'm on stage, I just like to have as little to think about as possible.
Right.
If I could have one pickup, I'd be happy. But this guitar sounds great. I'll play it a little.
Yeah, play some. God.
So it's just got a great voice.
Fabulous. Is that an ash body?
Yeah.
It's a very
ash
Vince
body.
Gill
vibe.
Yeah,
similar to the 53 Tele Vince plays.
God,
So,
it sounds great.
Yeah,
So string-wise,
it's all the boxes.
what are you
I
running?
use Ernie Ball strings, and these are 10 to 46. I used to use 12s, then I used 11s for a while, then I was using 10.5s, and there's something about 10s. To me, the biggest thing is not necessarily the sound, but it's the attack you need to hit the note with. And if the strings are a little heavier, you have to dig in a little more. And I find that there is something really nice about 10s in terms of the touch. And so I've gone back to using 10s.
Well, great.
And yeah, just Ernie Ball, 10 to 46.
And amp-wise, I assume this is a backline super.
This belongs to my friend Mike Gannon, who's playing alongside me tonight. It's a 67 Super.
Wow.
It's pretty clean, isn't it?
Clean. Yeah.
I am mostly using blackface Fender amps. I have a little champ that I use that's a 67 champ that's kind of become my main recording amp. And Dumble turned me on to champs.
Really?
And he sent me the Celestion speaker model he'd recommend I put in it. And yeah, I put it in a Pelican and fly around and do my solo one-man shows with the champ. Tonight I'm playing with a full band, Nia Z on drums, Michael Rhodes on bass, Pat Bergeson and Mike Gannon playing guitar with me. So I needed a little more muscle than a champ.
Yeah.
I have a deluxe reverb at home that I also use lots from 66, and I have a Showman from 67 that Kai Kennedy modded.
Oh, cool.
And the first channel has a little more of a Marshall kind of bassman kind of
Brent
thing.
Mason, I think, has a...
Yeah, it's the same treatment that he did for Brent, I believe.
Yeah.
And I use that with a 115 cab, which sounds pretty humongous.
Sure.
So I really like blackface amps. And I just got a little Tweed Deluxe from Mike Moody, who makes Magic amps. Yeah. And it's really amazing. It's almost like with a blackface amp, I need to use a little dirt in front of it.
Sure.
But with the Tweed, I can plug straight in, and it's just got the magic. Yeah. So that's what I'm playing.
And on the floor, very modest pedal board.
Yes, I'm glad you agree. Many people look at my pedal board and are quite confused because they're like, how do you have two loopers? Yeah. But I have the acoustic side to the right and then the electric side to the left. So like I said, I'm going for as lightweight as possible.
Yeah.
And I've stopped using a delay. I'm really just trying to not touch the pedal board unless I want to play a little wah-wah or unless I want to create a loop, which I don't really do a lot of looping, but what I do is that if I'm playing a solo acoustic song and I don't want to just finish it and then pick up electric, I'll play a little acoustic and then I'll do some kind of a little loop, put it down, and the guitar keeps going and everyone goes, what's going on? And then I'll pick up electric and play over the top a little bit. And it's more of a transition tool than anything. So I don't really try to rely on them too much. But the chain is just this TC tuner into a Crybaby Mini, that's a great sound.
Yeah.
And then into a Nobel's ODR Mini. And you run that at 18 volts and it sounds a little brighter than at 9 volts.
Really?
I've just figured that out. And the drive, if I'm using my champ, I'll have the drive on 0. Tonight I'm using the super, so the drive's kind of on a quarter to, kind of a half.
Yeah.
And it's just a bit of a, I set it and I don't touch it. That's my goal. Sometimes I'm fiddling with it, but it's not my intention. And then into the looper with the foot switch again, and then this Hall of Fame reverb that I love because it has one knob and it sounds really great.
Right.
And it takes, I mean, if I have to sit there and look at 4 knobs and make sure that everything's
right.
It's like, that just stresses me out.
Yeah, in one knob, it's like, okay, more or less.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
So.
Well, yeah, and how are you powering all this?
So there's a Seox, I believe that's how you pronounce it, power supply underneath, and it's bolted to the pedal board. It's the Metro 20. I debated whether to try to find a lighter power supply because this one's pretty heavy, but I decided to leave it because...
You're talking about ounces.
Yeah.
You're talking about...
Yeah. My Pelican is 48 pounds, so I have a little bit of give, but yeah, I'm really trying to keep it as flyable as possible.
Yeah, mission accomplished. That's about as lean as you could hope to get.
But it sounds great, and it's nice for the kind of fingerstyle stuff too. If I was to do
hit
like
a little bit of that. What is it about the Australian outback? I guess there's nothing else to do but just practice all the time.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I grew up in a house that we got hot water in 2001.
Wow.
So I remember like my parents boiling a pot of water on the wood-fired stove, which was our only way to cook, by the way. Even in summer in Australia, we light that fire every day.
Yeah.
And boil a pot of water, pour it into this big garbage can thing with a shower nozzle on the bottom, and we go and hang it on the clothesline. And you know, we never dried our clothes with a machine. It was such a bizarre thing for me, as with many things when I came to America. But we go out there and we'd shower under the bucket. And still to this day, if my dad goes to stay with someone, he'll turn the water on, turn it off, lather up, and then turn it back on to conserve water. It's just kind of like, there wasn't anything to do. There was a TV this big that had 2 channels on it, and they were both fuzzy.
Right.
So I had some friends who had VHS tapes and DVDs. Well, this was before DVDs actually. But I'd bootleg anyone who had a live music concert, or the best, like the thing I was really searching for were instructional VHS videos.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I would eat my cereal every day in front of Eric Johnson's Hot Licks video, Danny Gatton's Hot Licks videos.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really how I got into the world of guitar. I also went to the Salvation Army and bought a 10-year supply of Guitar Player magazine for like $25 or something. And it was from the 80s.
Right.
So that was when, there's a lot of good stuff going on back then. So
amazing stuff. Yeah.
I was, that's how I learned. Yeah. And when YouTube came about, I got real into, well, it was like the whole world opened up.
Sure.
I got to meet Phil and Tommy Emmanuel when I was 11, and hearing them play together and hearing Phil's confidence and the way they listened, Tommy's unbelievable playing and power and charisma and musicality and the melodic nature of everything they played, it really just changed my life.
Yes, those guys, it was like a conversation, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like the whole time, like the way they played.
Phil became a dear friend, and you know, he would breed reptiles, and
I took
my rhythm section to Phil's house one time along the road, and this is a couple guys who had never been to Australia, and we walked into Phil's living room, and he has about 50 snakes. He had about 50 snakes.
Did you give him any warning, or just send them into the snake pit?
So Phil loved to shock people, so he had a big water python with, like a 10-foot big black water python, and he had a couple of mice, and he'd grab them by the tail and he'd whack them, and then he'd throw them to the water python. The pythons would be writhing around, and my mates are just going, what's going on here? So, and he used to call my mum, who was working as a veterinary nurse at the time, and say, "Hey, Kath, I need some mice. Do you have any mice at the clinic?" And she'd say, "Oh yeah, we got some frozen mice and rats in the freezer." And so we'd turn up to Phil's gig with a little cooler and give him a top up, and he'd drive back to his place with the little cooler and keep filling it up with ice. Anyway, he was a wonderfully charismatic person, and
amazing talent.
Tommy and Phil really changed my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
That's beautiful, man. And God, I guess hearing them play like that in person just made you see it's possible, you know?
Definitely. And Phil flat out told me, he said, "Joe, you're probably the best 12-year-old guitar player I've seen." He said, "Most kids your age are listening to some Limp Bizkit crap, and here you are playing Jerry Reed's."
Yeah.
I was playing, there was a fellow up in the bush who had a copy of Heavy Neckin', which is the book John Knowles transcribed, so they played all the Heavy Neckin' tunes.
Yeah.
And Mr. Lucky was the first Jerry Reed tune I learned, which is like this kind of thing.
Just
great music. So they really made me believe in myself, and for that I'll be forever grateful.
Yeah.
So I have another special guitar.
Oh yeah,
that I'm gonna show
please.
You.
Let's see that.
So this is a guitar that was brought down here by Carter Vintage, and I'm very lucky to play it, to say the least.
Okay, so I've seen this guitar before. Tell us about it.
So this is a 1960 Burst Les Paul, I believe. This is being sold, and the proceeds are going to Homes for Our Troops, which is a great cause. So Carter Vintage brought it down here for me to play during the gig. So I'm very lucky.
That's great. And actually, we saw Joe Bonamassa had this at his rundown just a few months ago. So
really cool.
I think it's making the rounds to all the great players.
So I'll play a little on it. That tune with Les.
God.
I got to play that tune with Les before he died.
How amazing.
It was my first trip to the US, and we went down to the Iridium. My friend, a young guitarist named Brian Brown, we went down there and got to sit in with him. So
God, that's so great.
Pretty
That's right.
special.
He had that. Isn't that great too? He lived to be roughly 100 years old, like 99.
Yeah, he was, I think, 96 maybe.
Huh. And he was
But-
gigging the whole time.
Yeah, the story I heard was that he would drive home after every performance and listen to the board mix of his gig to critique his playing, even into his mid-90s.
God.
I found that really inspiring. So.
Yeah, that is inspiring. Well, hey, man, you're inspiring. It is great
Thanks,
to see
John.
you. Thanks for being here today. Check him out. This is John Bolger. Till next time.